So I wanted to bring this up to you because it is getting to that point with Pete Alonso. We have not talked about him in a while. So the Mets have informed Alonso and Boris that they need a decision soon. It has not been reported the Mets gave them, an offer that was the drop dead offer, but it sounds like that's what's probably going on, where this is it, you take it or leave it. And David Stearns has obviously drawn a line in the sand and said, we will take Pete Alonso back with this particular contract. We don't feel comfortable with anything else. And with me, I know that Pete...
Do we know the particulars or the accuracy of the contract? It's like 3 years, $90 million, and some sort of player opt-out after a year if he has just a tremendous season in this lineup, or no?
Well, that's what was reported that the Boris camp came to the Mets with. And they said, all right, 3-year deal with opt-outs, but they never said what the money was going to be in that 3-year deal. So, 3-year deal with opt-outs is fine as well, and you wonder... so you hear also the rumblings, which could be a negotiating ploy, but I do know that the Mets are going to be in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as a free agent. But
bring them both in then.
Saying also that they are now interested in maybe trying to trade for him now, which I don't think will happen. I think the Blue Jays, especially a big draw that he is, they're going to see how the season's going. They don't want to lose him for nothing.
Let me ask you a question. The Blue Jays have been in on every single big player this cycle, have they not?
Well,
I feel like they've
been reported to be in on everything, but that doesn't mean that they actually are.
If they are in on all these players and reportedly in on all these players, then why don't they just sign Vlad Guerrero right now?
Because Vlad Guerrero is going to say, no, I want to go to the open market and see if Steve Cohen overpays for me like he did with Juan Soto. That's why. They could try.
Right.
But he's probably going to say no, like Soto said no to the Padres and the Nationals.
So do you think Vlad Guerrero is going to garner, because he's a much better defensive player than Pete Alonso and also Juan Soto? Do you think he's going to garner more money because he not only hits for power average and he's a better fielder? Do you think he's going to make more money than Juan Soto?
I don't think so.
Really?
No. I think he'll get a massive contract. I don't think it'll be more money than Juan Soto. But, it's a shame that it's gone this way with the Mets and Pete Alonso, and really it's because of last year. David Stearns himself gave Pete Alonso that contract offer we talked about last offseason, which was a big deal. It was it would end up being 7 years or 8 years at a close to $200 million, whatever it was, and turned it down. They wanted that player at that point. He played it out. He bet on himself. He was horrendous in the clutch in the regular season, had the huge home run, obviously, against the Milwaukee Brewers that we'll never forget. But David Stearns is thinking we're looking at a guy at the wrong side of 30 who is declining, had his worst season yet, and it's just not worth it for us to pay him a bunch of money just because of the feel-good Pete Alonso stuff that goes on, the Met fan liking him and the polar bear and everything else. Just not worth it to us.
I just wonder what the numbers are, and I wonder if there are opt-outs, and, is it 3 years, $75 million? Is it 3 years, $60 million? Is it 3 years, $90 million? Is it a 1-year opt-out, a 2-year opt-out? And is it the player's ability to opt out, or does the team have the ability to opt out and maybe, buy him out for $10 million on the back end?
Yeah,
I would need to know all the particulars of the contract before I could actually make or have an opinion as to whether or not it's the right thing to do. Short term, I can buy into that. I think that's good. But, I don't know also whether I think Pete wants to stay here in the worst way. I think he loves playing for the Mets. I think he'd like to be a lifelong Met. But if he has a 5-year deal, let's say from the Athletics or, the Cubs or St. Louis, somebody like that. I
don't think he does.
But if he did, I think he would have already signed it.
I agree. And that's why the Mets are holding, this line that they're holding and saying, all right, I don't feel like you got a lot out there. And we know you want to be here, so this is what it is. This is the deal. If you could do better, then go do better.
I also got to think, just like the Yankees, with Juan Soto in the lineup now, and you add Pete Alonso to that lineup, I think Pete Alonso benefits, obviously, from Juan Soto being in the lineup, and I think Juan Soto benefits from Pete being in the lineup.
Yeah, you really can't argue that. Pete's someone that in a bad year still has big power numbers, but his clutch numbers were just horrendous last year. So a lot of those home runs were meaningless home runs. But yes, and then if Pete Alonso's not there, you're going to have to try to replace that production some sort of way as we are in the middle of January. I mean, the Mets haven't done much here.
I would bet you that Alex and Steve Cohen want Pete Alonso back. David Stearns would like to have Pete Alonso back, but it has to be under the Mets offer currently. That's the only way I think he comes back. This way the Mets can say, look, we gave him a fair offer. He decided to go elsewhere. And I think as long as the Mets have that in their back pocket, then I don't necessarily know that the Met fan could get all that upset if Pete Alonso ends up somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Soto contract was humongous. It was the biggest signing of the offseason, the biggest in their history. We know that. But after that, it's been pretty quiet for the Mets. I mean, bringing Manaea back was good, but it has not been the flurry of activity that we sort of expected after the Juan Soto deal, where you're thinking, all right, people are going to want to be a part of this. They're going to not stop there. Still plenty of time, but it's just, I mean, it is certainly grinded to a halt. But I mean, it's the classic. You could apply what's going on with David Stearns and Pete Alonso in all sorts of walks of life. Like I like this thing, but I don't like it at that price.
What are we, about a month away from pitches and catches?
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we are.
I mean, that's
about a month away from pitchers and catchers there, Al.
That is the most overrated thing in the world. Nobody cares.
Al loves pitchers and catchers.
Nobody cares if pitchers and catchers are showing up. It's just like a sign of spring. That's what it is. That's why people get excited about it. It's like the red-breasted robin when you see it bopping around in your lawn and you're like, okay, this is pretty good. Spring's right around the corner. With the groundhog situation. But that's the whole pitchers and catchers report. You're like, oh, it feels like baseball. But nobody's actually caring that pitchers and catchers are reporting. Well, it feels like baseball.
I kind of care.
No, you don't.
Stop.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You don't care.
I do care.
You are a guy who is not about the fluff and the nonsense. You're about playing the games, starting the season, things that matter. You don't care about pitches and catches. You don't.
I kind of do.
So you're going to be sitting there watching all the spring training games? Grapefruit League games?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I do care about pitchers and catchers. I don't know why. It just seems like something I should care about. I am a sports talk radio host.
Yeah, I understand. And there's lots of things you care about in sports.
I do. I care about a lot of sports, yes.
I just think it's an overrated thing, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
It's just that, the fan isn't necessarily excited about pitchers and catchers reporting. What it is just, it's a symbol of things to come.
Yeah, it's like a blooming.
Yeah, it's like we're getting out of the doldrums and into the spring.
Super Bowl's over.
Yeah.
Football season's, we all get depressed when that happens.
Yeah. Yep.
But the good thing about that is that, we'll have the Knicks. Hopefully we'll have the Rangers. They keep playing the way they're playing. We'll see.
If you're drafting months, January's got to be number 11 or 12, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Here in New York.
Here, yes.